may be headed somewhere else.
You never know.
Bye.
I don't know why you would want to sell a galleon. They're so hard to turn and navigate. It's like the waves are pushing it this way.
Oh, hello.
Who's driving the ship?
I'm boarding your market stall.
Alright, you're welcome to. Oh no, are you alright?
Oh, Robin.
It was a jump than I expected.
It's a big jump off a biggin
Real big and team.
Big team.
How are things?
Good, how are things with you?
Good, we just did an escape room. It took us so long.
Oh no.
Well, we got the fastest time.
Oh, the fastest time, and it took a long time.
It's the only time,
Yeah,
but that is not
don't
the
look
point.
into the fact that it's the only time, but
Oh, I see. How?
We were wondering if we would maybe be able to get to museum tour, because Rowan here has not seen it before.
Oh, alright, sure.
If that is alright with you guys.
is there a face on the front of that boat over there?
Probably. The museum has a face. Oh my god, that's so cool!
Oh yeah.
Can I take a look? Can I jump on there?
It's not ours.
It's not our ship,
Oh.
but you're welcome
Oh.
to. Yeah, that's right.
It's freaking cool. It's like a whale, but a ship.
It's clearly a shark.
Oh, it's like a shark, but a ship. Shut up.
It's like a whale with big sharp teeth. Yet.
Yeah, you know, whales have sharp teeth, right?
Hi.
Hello.
That's a cool ship.
It's very cool. Rowan, did you fall off again?
No.
You're a silly goose.
Yeah, we're not sure whose ship it is. We woke up this morning and there it was. Elias thinks it may be Kunoa's.
Probably someone who really likes whales.
Could be. I didn't
gonna fight
ask
you.
you.
What I did.
Oh, great. Now we have a water park.
I think it might be a piranha.
Yeah, it kind of looks a bit piranha-y.
It's got the underbite and everything.
Yeah.
Now, Boggert, you're going to get stuck there and we'll have a terrible time getting you out.
I'm out. I'm right here. Can you see me?
Yeah, I saw you jump over there and saw you hover in the air
Now I'm just looking around.
because one of the teeth snagged the back of your shirt.
I'm not doing any hovering.
I should have made a wager on that. It would take at least several attempts to get an anchor on that one.
I think everyone's off the ship.
Yeah.
Ah,
Can we not drop the anchor?
I think so. I can't anchor there, so we're gonna repark the ship. And I think, honestly, bearing in mind how late it is and how tired I am, I should probably just call it now.
Yeah, fair enough. We can come back again some other time.
Absolutely, yeah. Rowan, you're gonna enjoy the hell out of it, and hopefully I'll be seeing you soon. Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
And we'll have to do another escape room again at some point together.
Oh God, just the two of us. Just
Do you reckon
completely
they'd allow us to just do a two-man escape room?
just literally guessing everything as we go until we luck our way out? Yeah, I think it's
Pretty much until they get that fed up that they have to give us all the clues, and then just
like
just
here.
just
The
fucking
code
get
is
shot
1,
with
2,
them.
3, 4. Just leave now.
Get out.
But it's been such a pleasure hanging out with you. You can see why they speak so highly of you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.
I just like to talk a bunch of crap.
That's why I enjoy your
It's the
company.
best thing. If I think of it, it's coming out. Simple as.
Well, enjoy the tour, guys. I will look forward to doing it later. I'm gonna have to wait for the ship to repark, though. Otherwise,
Yeah.
how do I do it?
Do you guys want one of those fancy figureheads for the front, by the way, or do you want that one? Because I've got a bunch of the really big ones.
Well, we bought a Pegasus. Really wanted that, but
Oh,
turns
Pegasus
out
doesn't fit on the galleon properly.
no, it doesn't fit on the galleon. So that sucks.
I've got dragons, octopuses, everything.
They're rather, pirate-esque.
Not really.
Cliched. All the pirates like the octopuses and the dragons. And, yeah.
I put an axe on the front of mine because it looks funnier if I bump into a sloop or a raft because it just goes straight under the bomb.
Yeah, I don't know which ones don't have a bowsprit attached, because that's the only sort that's going to fit on the galleon, I think.
I can have a look through the ones I got for you.
Yeah,
And I do have a galleon, so I can check which ones actually work.
yeah. I don't know what they will look like either, and that's kind of the thing.
Well, I can, you know, I'll bring one of each over, and I'll let you just pick which one you want.
Ooh, we could do
Okay.
like when they bring swatches of color, you know.
True.
Do you like the octopus? Do you feel like it's working for the vibe of the room? Ah, it's a little too party. Okay, we'll try that. Wonder if she's gonna be able to anchor there, because it's probably the same depth.
I think we did last time, didn't we? We anchored
I
on
think it
small
was on the other side of the sloop.
Which grid is taking a nap right now? The one right above us. Nice. Oh, hope they're sleeping well.
Oh, not B4 again.
Yep.
Yes. It was quite nice yesterday or the day before. Traffic was very low coming into these waters.
We got stuck in it for 3 hours sleeping.
Oh no.
Yeah. Was not nice. Because then we got behind on delivering the mail.
B4's cursed, I tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, the marvel of a galleon docking.
It takes a while.
I'm surprised you
really
didn't
does.
put a backup beeper on it.
Morgan often stands on the back going, "You're good, you're good, you're good." Maybe if we were to strap, I don't know, 10 or 11 seagulls on a pole and attach them sort of protruding out the back of the ship, we could use the various squawks to know how close we are. 10 squawks, yep, you're about to hit the dawn.
Maybe.
Damn it, I thought we anchored here the other day.
It was
Yeah, I thought we did.
on the
Morgan,
other side of the
I'll park
sloop.
it.
No, we've definitely anchored on this side. I think you might need to go a little bit. No, we were definitely
Cool.
here.
Just tilt the ship to the
Because I tried
right.
to go around this side and then I realised no, it can't go that side, so we have to go around this side. That's so weird.
That's a very precarious staircase to get to right there, that is.
It's a little tricky.
It's fine, I'm gonna move it.
We was planning on putting another wharf down, but we can't seem to because someone's fell asleep in our harbor. Elias has threatened to sinking this ship because the clockworks have come to collect on the extended warranty.
Oh no, not that.
Oh, you can give them this. Just present them this.
That's the letter that Elias keeps getting.
Hell yeah.
I've gotten a lot of them. Somebody's gonna come after me.
Oh no, Elias, no, they're
We're
not.
going to have to go to the Navy and get it all resolved.
That's what Owen and Stanley said. And neither one of them have been around.
Yeah, all talk and no action.
So the Biggintines really speeding up your deliveries.
Yeah, I mean, we ran out of letters to deliver, so yeah.
Oh, that is good.
And so, do you dock at people's ports, or you just jump off, run to shore, and drop it in the mailbox and run back?
No, I mean, most of the time we can. I mean, sometimes we anchor, quite away from the port, miles out to sea, because it is quicker than backing up.
Be back in a second, Joe.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Ta-da! Like magic.
Night, Teague.
No,
I,
Good night.
I'm excited because Ro hasn't seen it. It is fun when you take that.
This should acquire a specialty cheese shop at the end of an alley. You're probably questioning, is it appropriate to locate a cheese shop in the melting heat? The answer, no. Not because of the heat, however. was the feral cats. The cats had taken to begging at the cheese shop, and as patrons were leaving, they would kindly drop a crumb or two, leaving the cats to wait for the next patron. Eventually, the roof support beams groaned and popped under the weight of waiting cats. The shop owner attempted to shoo them away at first, but then realized the cats would not touch the crumbs of the most pungent cheeses, and a patron remarked, "It is so hot today, the stone walls are almost sizzling." As the patron rounded the corner, the shop owner sprang into action, and gathering the most pungent cheeses, pressed them against the wall, where they melted, sticking them on. It did work. To the cats, the stench of the cheese was so intense they fled to the far side of the island. The shop owner rested well that evening, until suddenly the roof support beams began to creak and groan, running out into the dark to chase the cats off the bowing roof. The shop owner caught a glimpse of them through the moonlight. The cats first turned their eyes, and then their beaks, toward the shop owner. It is then the owner realized the roof was cut not in cats, but in starving, hungry vultures.
You're welcome to sniff the wall if you like. Just get the smell of the pungent cheese.
Oh,
Bit wrong.
it's
No,
very,
I'm
very sturdy smell.
I love cheese as well.
Ooh.
Look at all that cheese.
Oh my god, I've never actually looked in the window.
Oh, have you never looked
Wow.
in the window? There's a
Oh
lot.
my god, I'm moving in.
There's a whole cheese shop there.
That's like my room.
The Great Northern Factory disaster took place on a particularly cold, dark, rainy evening. The main source of heat in the frozen north was a giant fireplace located beneath the smokestack here above us. The factory backed up to a large rock mountain, and the entrance of a great coal mine was built down off the factory into the depths of the mountain. The top of the mountain was known as a habitat for an assortment of different animals. The employees of the factory found a large snake roasting on the coals late one afternoon and proceeded to prepare it for their dinner. It was not unusual for someone to bring whatever they had, although they could not determine who had brought the snake. They made a feast of the snake anyhow and went back to work. As the evening grew colder and darker, they placed more and more coal onto the fire. What no one realized is the snake, deliciously roasting on the fire, had chased a rather plump sheep off the mountaintop. The snake and the sheep both fell over the edge and landed on top of the smokestack. The snake plunged through, down onto the hot coals below, but the sheep was wedged high above the factory in the smokestack. The toxic smoke had already backed up and weakened most of the workers to the point they could not get out when the panic began. All but 3 workers were killed in this tragedy. The death toll was said to be near 458 lives, and it would remain the largest number of people killed by a single sheep for at least 2 more decades.
I still can't believe
Why?
that.
Right, something.
Quite a sheep.
Any questions at all?
Can't see it as like being a serial killer if it's all in one go. Like he's killing all the things people at once, or
All at once.
it's just a mass murder.
Yeah,
That's
that-
crazy. What's the you said for like at least 2 decades. Do you have any information on what other sheep shenanigans might have happened in the world?
No, we're not sure. We don't have that part of the story. We only get what we get. It
Yeah.
comes from what we can find out on the seas, but we are still searching for that piece of the story.
Oh, I hope you
Eventually,
find it someday. Because that's a lot of sheep murder.
Yeah, it is. That's a lot.
Evil.
Before you hear is a certified giraffe examination chair. It's been placed here as a public service by the Giraffe Handlers Association. When a giraffe needs to be examined for multiple reasons, it is much easier to inspect the giraffe from closer to their height. The doctor will climb up to the chair, and the giraffe will be brought closer for inspection purposes. What type of inspection, you ask? One purpose is to see whether they have the giraffe-like teeth, or the less common human-like teeth, of course. But a far more common reason is to see if the ears have been laid with spider eggs again, as giraffe ears are known to be the perfect habitat for spider eggs. Laying their eggs in the giraffe's warm ear hair, they lie forgotten until the time comes for the hatching. If you have giraffes tame or wild near your home, be sure that they are not shaking their heads frequently. This is the first sign the spider egg laying has occurred. If your giraffes have ears infested with spider eggs, the time will come, will hatch, and the giraffe's head shaking will deposit tiny hatchlings around and throughout your home. That's right.
This is why we get freaked out about giraffes that are shaking their heads.
Oh.
Watch them. Yeah, you never know. They could be
know that.
infested. Do you have giraffes near your home?
Yeah, lots of them.
What? Why you live there? That's a terrible location.
I didn't know.
But now you do.
No, you don't.
Shoot them before they get near.
Now you know and you can't forget.
Yeah, and if you see a spider, it's most likely seeing you a mile away and started running towards you, so be prepared.
I will
Right
ready
this way.
myself.
Oh, I like this one. It's cool.
Yeah.
In a far off kingdom, a rotten king reigned supreme. He was known to frequently decide that he had been slighted and placed people in prison to be punished or worse. The king unexpectedly ordered a particularly complicated feast from his chef Arthur in the middle of the night. The chef and the king's staff worked frantically, as tired as they were, to create a culinary masterpiece. The feast was a triumph, and the king later sent word to see if he may speak with the chef. Word arrived very early in the morning. The king would be to the kitchens within the hour, and the kitchen staff readied themselves for his visit. The king arrived with his guards, and he quietly toured the kitchens as he thoroughly inspected a great many things. Nothing was said, however. The king looked at his guards as he approached the exit and nodded. The king's guards proceeded to destroy the kitchen's pots, pans, and kitchen tools. The guards turned to the chef and they said, "The king would like you to know he is displeased with last night's feast. You forgot to serve sea salt instead of salt with his meal." But the chef was aghast. He knew he had served the sea salt. He had prepared it himself. He only said "aye" before he was cut off, and told he was to be removed from the king's staff and be placed in a prison to await further punishments. The king felt assured mistakes no longer be made in his kitchen, and as a test a few weeks later, he had a new feast prepared for the opening of the knight's tournament. At the end of the tournament, a victorious knight stood remaining. The king was so unhappy, feeling slighted again because his favorite knight did not win. So he rushed the knight with a dagger in his hand. The knight flicked away the dagger, but gave the king what was intended for the knight. The king was now removed from life and power, and the knight made their way to the throne and were seated. The shocked crowd dropped the facade of reverence for the old king and warmly cheered a new powerful leader. The guards, also shocked, but no longer hiding their contempt for the rotten king, said, "All hail the new king." To which the entrant removed their helmet and said, "Queen." "All hail the new queen," said the guards. "What would you have us do, your majesty?" they asked. "Firstly, bring me Arthur, the chef from the prisons." Arthur approached the new queen, and he quietly asked, "Daughter, what has happened? And are those my pots and pans you are wearing?" "It's time to explain it all, father," she said. "They sent them to me at the blacksmith shop for repairs. They did not know I was your daughter." She smiled pleasantly at her father as they waved toward the crowd over the tournament field and the cold, dead body of the former king. "You always said that your pots and pans would bring us good fortune, father. You just did not know how right you were."
She was a smart one, wasn't she?
As it was,
Very smart.
and prepared.
Yeah, this is a fan favorite. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
I like it.
Yes. Oh, thank you very much.
Before
Pretty
we
sure
go
I wrote
in,
in my review. My favourite.
I mean, there's no spiders in it, so that's always a plus.
Yeah. Not enough cheese, but cool.
Yeah.
before we go into the next room, do not panic. Everything is under control. If there was an actual fire, we would direct you to the nearest fire exit. Right this way.
It's only fire that looks like fire. There's nothing unusual happening.
Only fire. That's fine.
Fire that looks like fire. On a roasting hot desert island, it rarely rained. House fires were happening frequently, and to help combat the fires, the residents used what they had to craft 2 fire carts. These carts, each pulled by the best rhinosaur the island could breed, were filled with water and pulled from location to location. Raspberry the monkey, found wandering an island used as turtle habitat, was pet of the head of the fire cart haulers. Out on one of their first patrols, they discovered something unusual. Raspberry had previously been trained to pull a cart. They decided that given his constant insistence that he be handed the reins, Raspberry would be trained to drive the rhinosaur of cart number 2. This worked more than well. Raspberry was already a complete natural at cart handling and needed no instruction at all. They even crafted a small seat just for him. This allowed the others to focus more on the fires. Months passed and the carts raced to fire after fire. Raspberry excitedly guiding the cart all the way. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult morning of fighting a long series of fires, the bell rang out. It was time to ready the carts, but Raspberry could not be located. The head of the fire cart haulers went to Raspberry's room and found the monkey sleeping in bed. Knowing the poor creature must be exhausted after the morning they had another member of the fire cart haulers pull the reins instead. They left without tired Raspberry to head to the fire. Along the way, they spotted an unreported house fire and slowed cart number 2 to water it before catching back up to cart number 1. While spraying the house, the front door burst open and a soaking wet Raspberry with an extinguished torch in his hand emerged. Not believing that Raspberry could be both asleep and at the scene of the fire, they checked the bed. Neatly shaped and arranged was a pair of trousers made to look like a sleeping Raspberry the monkey. Raspberry was wise at a great many things, cart hauling and deception being among his greatest talents. He was returned to the offices of the Turtle Sanctuary where he was found, so he could retire from his very busy life. The fire stopped overnight, and the fire cart haulers were quiet, until one afternoon, a flare was fired and a representative from a neighboring island had arrived. They wanted advice on fire carts, for they had been plagued with fires recently, and they also needed a small seat in the front, because they had the oddest thing, a monkey who knew how to drive a cart.
Oh, Raspberry.
Raspberry. Yeah, that's right.
Troublesome little monkey.
Still causing trouble.
Just like you, but a monkey.
I would not want to live anywhere near Raspberry.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I wonder who grew that monkey, who raised it to begin with.
Probably arsonists.
Oh my goodness, there's no telling. No, this is not a tavern filled with delicious libations. In fact, if you had been here 50 years ago, you would be dead. It was not unusual a long time ago to place additives into your spirits to give them an interesting afternote, be it bitter, sweet, or bittersweet. It was an unusually crowded evening the night before and would be again at a combination inn and tavern. The tavern keep was too busy to go for the ingredients for a top note to add to the drink for the next evening. The tavern keep's sibling was sent to pick up the rare, delicious, green sweet ingredient, Magistine. The herbologist, however, was also out, and in their stead, their apprentice was working. The assistant herbologist mistook the requested Magistine for the more common pest remover, maggot stem. Nearly identical in both appearance and flavor, coupled with the unfortunate similarity in the name, the switch was made. The maggot stem was delivered to the tavern and used to give the tavern's libations the signature smooth sweetness. As is custom with a spirit house attached to overnight accommodations, the drinks poured heavily and quickly. The hallucinations began an hour into the evening, and the vomiting began shortly thereafter. Ingestion of maggot stem was said to produce hallucinations such as liquid running down the walls, inanimate objects breathing, skies filled with flying animals, and the mistaking of human form for animal. The chaos of the visions, coupled with the vomiting, began a putrid battle inside the tavern where they all fought for their very lives. Any who made it outside were driven back in by the visions they saw in the sky. Those victors who survived the vomitous battle were said to have lain unconscious on these very floorboards until their heart slowed to death.
You better give us good alcohol, Ron, because I don't really want to see stuff breathing.
Yeah, you have to keep track of what's in your spirits when you go to any of these taverns out on the seas and make sure they're not putting anything unusual in there.
Yeah.
Very careful with my spirits.
Right, very good.
Hope so.
If you've been to a hot, humid, tropical island, you know all too well that the heat can be unrelenting. Two elderly brothers were looking for the lost goat near their home when they stumbled upon something. A very large abandoned well. The well had run low of water, but the inside had a beautiful pool at the bottom. The brothers knelt beside the lid, and when they opened it, they could feel the cool, refreshing air blow past them. They thought about and discussed the well the remainder of the day and night, and they awoke the next day with a plan. They would put a ladder down the well and see what was on the inside. They slipped from the final ladder rung into the cool, dark water and enjoyed the most luxuriously pleasant soak in neck-high, perfectly chilled water. The water drained a bit more over time, and instead of floating, they had to kneel or sit on the bottom of the well. This did not suit the aging frames, and they began to talk once again of a plan. It was decided to make the well a bit more comfortable. They would move some furniture inside. They used ropes, and the goat, who was finally found in time, to lower some things down from the hatch above. This would be their final plan. Their friend, who knew of the well and having not seen the brothers for some time, began to worry and look for them. When they approached the well, they could already tell something was wrong. The scent of mold and mildew and end of life met their friend before the well. For you see, as they were soaking in the cool, damp richness of the well, so was their furniture. The introduction of the furniture began a growth of mold and mildew and rot that first tainted the well and then outright poisoned it. As the furniture was slowly mildewing and molding from the outside, the cool, damp, dark back of the chairs was growing a deadly fungus. Before that fungus was discovered, it had already started to emit toxic spores, which filled the well and the lungs of the two elderly brothers.
Ew.
That's right.
It looks so comfy.
It does look very comfy.
I've always wanted to sit on it every time I've been here. Okay. Legal.
All right. Far beneath the beautiful country estate lie a strange fate for those unfortunate enough to have encountered a pair of mad noblewomen. They had a secret which would have run the blood cold of those in the aristocratic circles they kept themselves in. The mad women had developed an unusual diet preference: human toenails. Half-hearted soldier, drunken sailor, or sea wench, they preyed upon all of them. They went into the dark nights to round up their victims. They would wait outside tavern and dance hall for those inebriated enough not to put up a fight. A bag over their head, about sixpence a round, was usually enough to knock even the stoutest person unconscious if they had been plied with enough drink. They would be locked into the chambers on each side of me here, the feet scrubbed, cleaned, and the toenails carefully trimmed, so as not to waste an ounce of that most precious resource. I know what you're wondering. Why did they not pull the toenails out at the root? After all, that's the sensible thing to do. Well, the sisters were not monsters. They were just oddly hungry. So very strangely hungry. Each victim awakened dumped on the outskirts of a town, shoeless, sockless, with their pants rolled to their knees. But their feet had been beautifully scrubbed, and their toenails had been trimmed perfectly. The sisters were caught. They eventually mistook a pair of sleepy officers for inebriated, and then were overcome by them. threatened with having their toenails pulled out at the root, because it's a sensible thing to do. They confessed to the entire ruse, and afterward they fell from grace and out of high society. They took on new identities. They began working in a wash house, trimming the nails of the patrons who came to bathe, thereby secretly continuing to feed a most insane, odd, and insatiable hunger.
It's so weird.
It's one of the strangest things. It's one of the strangest cases we've come across.
Speaking of being inebriated,
A new beautiful island Freeport was too close to the deep ocean water trench. The frequent ship traffic to and from the island had angered the residents of the deep waters. Many different creatures made their way out of the depths to investigate the new disturbances as the swirling waters mixed with warmer water down into the cool trench and introduced new detritus into the depths. Mermaids from the trench seemed to grow much angrier, becoming a constant menacing presence in the waters. Teach the citizens defensive tactics to protect themselves against the angry mermaids, as well as to ensure people would not fear nearing the profitable Freeport. The Freeport opened a training institute just off the shore. Before you here are the standard issue training form, as well as the specialized mermaid training form developed at the institute. Normally housed in deeper water, it was used to teach citizens techniques to avoid or defend against angry mermaids. The mermaids seemed to realize something was occurring at the Freeport, and they really began to increase their violence. Eventually, they made their way to the institute itself, onto the shore side where the training forms were stationed in the water. Instead of damaging the training forms, the mermaids began to study them. They possibly believed them to be figures in reverence of themselves. It is believed that they took this as a sign that the mermaid was a respected neighbor, and it led them to stop their attacks completely. Unintentionally, the forms did work to protect the citizens. No one ever trained to defend themselves against the mermaids ever had to, and the mermaid forms were left in the water as a sign of continued mutual respect. Luckily for the Freeport, however, the mermaids had not witnessed the defensive techniques used against these forms.
that's pretty cool. Oh.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I keep forgetting that's the
Oh, they're so big, too.
Yeah.
free time.
A skilled blacksmith made a fortune on board a ship repairing broken old wood stoves in the frozen polar region. A fortune he intended to keep. Looking around his ship one day, he realized he had a dozen wood stoves that no one had claimed after they had been repaired, needing to both remove all the extra weight from the ship and to also find a more suitable place to keep his treasure safe. He left the polar region for his home on a warm elephant island. He owned a small piece of the island that included a swamp. The swamp was home to many horrendous beasts, the least of which were an endless amount of spiders. He knew the perfect location for a hideaway for his treasure was a well-hidden cavern on the edge of the swamp. You would never see it unless you were falling into it. Covered with vines and growth, it was the perfect hiding place, except it was home to a lot of very fast spiders. But he knew that spiders fear one thing above all others: a larger, faster spider. To attempt to stop the spiders from living in the cavern, as well as to add an additional shock should any unfortunate soul stumble into the caverns, he carted the old forgotten wood stoves down into the darkened mouth of the cavern to create this monstrosity here before you. Welding the stoves together, carving a stone plinth from the cavern's rocks, he successfully created a spider to frighten all the other spiders, and they fled in fear, leaving him now to place his treasure deep into the delightfully spider-free cavern. He went back to the north and made more and more treasure, and then he readied himself for a return to his secret cavern. Upon his return, he was looking forward to a spiderless cavern after having fought his way through so many of them in the swamp. He arrived at the cavern and found it filled with elephants, bursting at the seams with elephants. They chased him away from the entrance back to the ship over and over, for you see, the only thing keeping the elephants out of the cavern were the spiders. And the only thing luring them deeper down into the cavern was the new multiple armed post someone had placed there for them to scratch themselves on.
Oh, elephants.
Yeah,
Oh.
it is a lot of fingers for an elephant. Well, I figured they could scratch an entire side on this thing all at one time. That's kind of fine. They're a little bit warped here and there still, I think from the elephants pushing on them.
Yeah, makes sense. Elephants are kind of big and heavy.
That's right.
Spooky.
I mean, that would have scared me off too. Like a giant
Yeah.
spider.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Popcorn.
Oh yes, we
What
have
happened here?
Oh,
delicious little libations and things, and we have one of these beautiful little French punch bowls. It has a French word on the front here, laiches. We believe laiches is French for punch, so we keep our punches in there.
ah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's smart. You wouldn't want to lose your punches.
Here is what was once a beautiful, marvelous circus organ. The organ was a modern wonder. It needed no one to play it, and in fact, it didn't have keys. It produced sound through steam with a series of reused water and stovepipes and could play the most beautiful melodies. It was pulled on 3 carts behind 3 elephants as the circus parade arrived in town. Playing all the while, it let the residents know the circus was arriving. The circus fell into ruin after the death of the ringmaster and owner. The ringmaster was thrown higher than the High Wire Act one evening by a pair of elephants looking to escape their circus life. The audience, seeing the tragedy unfold, sent out warnings to all they knew: avoid the circus at risk of peril. The organ was purchased at an auction of items from the circus by a group of ne'er-do-wells who had a plan. They would travel with the reassembled pipe organ from port to port, playing friendly melodies for tips throughout the day. They would quieten as the shops closed and the people headed to the neighboring homes. Then, in the late hours of the evening, they would stoke the fires of the steam heaters until they were raging. The beautiful music, produced with gentle steam pressure, became a howling, screeching, clangorous noise. This caused the residents to flee their homes in terror, and horses and animals to batter their stalls, not knowing what beast was capable of such a noise. The ne'er-do-wells would slow the fires eventually, but only so they could issue a proclamation. The fires would be stoked repeatedly until the township was able to come up with a predetermined fee to pay the ne'er-do-wells to leave the port in peace. The ne'er-do-wells landed in another port as usual one afternoon. They played the beautiful music until the shops closed and the residents began to leave. Then they waited, and they went to the box on the top deck to get the wood for the fires. Instead of the residents being quietly asleep, however, the entire town was standing row after row, lining the edge of the harbor, staring directly at the vessel. The water was already flowing into the ship by the time the ne'er-do-wells could react. The residents, you see, had been made aware of this approaching ship 2 days prior, and they had already formed a plan of their very own. The pipe organ was dismantled and trod upon, and it resulted in the warped and discolored remaining pipes you see behind me here today.
Very smart plan.
That is relatively smart, yeah.
Yeah.
Weird.
Well,
Oh. Nice. I was about to say, in you go, Rowan, but
Nice.
yeah.
Here you go. There you go.
I slipped off the edge.
It's easy. It's got a little slippy side on it.
Yeah.
Below us here lies the coffin of the final husband of the widow of Shallow Creek. She was called the widow because she had buried 12 husbands. 11 of them were deceased. She begged for help from the townspeople. She said she was being haunted by the vengeful ghost of her most recent husband. The widows of the town vowed to help her, and they formed a group which would sit in the home of the widow while she tried to rest. It was a quick rotation, however. Well, you see, they all eventually stared straight again into the eyes of the man they used to know. Each night someone sat with her, just before the skies would lighten. There was a shuffling behind them, and one after another, the widows fled from the dark and creaking home. Once that group was exhausted, the widow still pleaded to the town for help. The young single men were sent next. They were thought to be less prone to fright, but it was the same story, however. They all ran for their lives after gazing into the eyes of the dead man. The oldest woman in town, thought far too frail, asked, "May I go next?" She sat slumped forward next to the warm fire in a chair, with her eyes closed and her back to the room. When the ghost appeared, his long bony fingers reaching and clawing slid up over the back of the chair and around the woman's frail, thin neck. From outside the home, a blood-curdling scream that could chase wolves back to their dens was cut short. The townsfolk, worried for the frail lady but humoring her, had kept their ears open for her call. A number of them reached the steps of the cabin at the same time, and they clambered to the front door, flinging it open. Standing tall over two bodies was the frail old woman. What no one realized is the oldest woman in town was also the wisest. Unable to sleep well in the cold nights due to her aging bones, she slept during the warmer daylight hours, and every night, while she sat awake, she watched the supposedly dead husband of the widow of Shallow Creek creep through home after home in town. For you see, as people went to sit with the terrified widow, her very much still alive husband was going to their homes and stealing from them. He would arrive later and scare the people out of his house so he could show what he had taken to his wife. The oldest woman, however, went prepared with a rolling pin in her sleeve to expose the rules of the widow of Shallow Creek.
Huh.
I did not expect that at all.
No. She was smart. And also I'm feeling kind of small.
Oh.
So,
I'm feeling very small.
yeah, I'm kind of thirsty and hungry, and I'm just gonna go get a snack.
Did you need water? It's right outside the door there.
Oh, is it? Out the front.
Right here.
Oh. Perfect.
Hello, welcome in.
Thank you.
Hello.
Here for the tour.
Yes.
Indeed.
Oh, wonderful. All right, we're partially through the tour, but you're welcome to join in.
Oh, yes,
Sounds
I
good.
would love to.
Well,
I
it's a really
was
good.
just gonna.
It's a really good bedtime story. You know, wasn't
Awake
spooky at all.
now.
You're just lucky we didn't put you in the casket and close the lid.
I would have put it past him. He totally would have.
In a remote cabin, something unusual happened. The owner of the cabin was growing older and more tired, and as the years were catching up to him, he thought he needed a way to bring vigor back to his life. He found a place where he could, for a price, order a tincture promising to bring life back to him. He placed the order, gave his address, and was told to wait 6 nights, and he would hear a loud bang on the door. He was not to look out for the courier, only to wait quietly for the 6th night. On the arranged night, as he sat patiently waiting, a loud bang was heard at the darkest portion of the night. Nearly jumping from his body, he realized only then he was a bit stronger still than he realized. He waited a moment and opened the door to retrieve the package bound in hides and tied to a large stone. He thought the bottle was unusually shiny until he realized part of the shine was coming from inside the bottle. He swirled the bottle through his fingers and stared at the cork topper. He thought of a plan and glanced up at the portrait of his loved one. He realized then the bottle may hold more than he bargained for. What if it turned back his aging? What if it stopped him from aging at all? Could he decide when he was through with the powerful elixir? He sighed and realized now that he held the power in his hand, what he missed was not his youth. It was that which was part of his youth, and that was not coming back. Angry mostly at himself, he flung the bottle into the fireplace, coating the back of it where it grew and roared like a tiger and spit flames across the room, eventually settling back into a normal fireplace once again. He wondered, though, what type of magic was in that tincture, and he vowed to himself he would never again try to recapture that which is meant to be left in the past.
Yeah.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, it's a smart move, that is.
Yeah.
Who knows what it would have done.
There's no telling. We've heard of that youth juice going around that people are drinking, trying to turn back the clocks, and we worry about them. We don't know what it's going to do to people. Deep in a prison lie a cold, dark, windowless cell. A guard routinely traversed the corridors. One prisoner they did not plan on having and did not know the history of was a magician, trained in the art of lock picking. Picking the lock would come easily enough, but getting out of the area would prove much more difficult, as the cell was at the end of a long U-shaped corridor. The prisoner had nothing but time, though, to plan. As they sat, waiting day in, day out, they watched the guards, and they finally thought of a plan. The guards always took the same pathway through the loop, and they realized they could never go towards the guards, they would be seen, but if they go ahead of the guards, they may make it out ahead of them. One problem, though, their bed would be found empty, as they were on their way to the exit and freedom, and the guards would raise the alarm bell. In an effort to fool the guards, they began to put away slices of bread and sausages in their pillowcase. The plan was almost ruined twice on unplanned laundry days when they had to gorge themselves on food that they had stashed away. Finally, though, a dark moonless night came, and it was dark enough for the plan to work. They neatly arranged the old bits of bread and sausages and formed a vague figure, just enough that the guards would see a body sleeping in the bed, and it would give them time to slip away. The plan went smoothly, and the prisoner was able to escape perfectly. The guards eventually discovered the ruse, though, and knowing how the head of the guards would react, and knowing what they had to do to hide it, they sat down for a most unwanted feast. You're welcome to take a closer look at the bread and sausages that were arranged to look like a body.
Wonderful.
Wow. She's gone to sleep again.
Yeah, I think she's having, little aneurysms. There you go. You can listen from there, Morgan.
Here before us is the interior of the city office of the butcher of Butterfly Lane, as he was later known. Shown on the table are the actual tools that he used. Fancying himself as a dentist, he was able to convince the local populace he was legitimate. Using a plant known for hallucinogenic properties, he was able to cause patients to, in essence, mentally leave their bodies while they were tied to the table here in front of you. He would then remove all of the teeth of the victim, promising only to repair their teeth. It was a lot easier to convince them afterward all the teeth were bad, and therefore none of the repair work, which he could not do, need be performed. Human teeth were a prized form of carotenoid, similar to bone but with a much sturdier structure once refined properly. The fraudulent dentist would leave his office early in the day, and that was thought odd by the community, considering how many desperately needed dental work. He had a nefarious reason for always leaving early, though. He was tainting the town's water supply with ground-up giant squid innards. The innards still contained a powerful acid that the squid uses to break down sharp shells that it ingests in its feeding cycle, and even once ground up and dispersed, the innards still had enough acid to weaken the teeth of the city dwellers to the point that they would need dental work, and thereby supply the dentist with all the teeth that he so desired. Ah!
Careful.
You're welcome to take a look inside the little box here on the table if you like. There's a lot of the teeth in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
good,
quite
thanks.
good.
All right, all right.
No,
You
no.
don't
That almost rivals my collection.
Oh, whoops.
Oh, I needed that.
Am I still like kind of dreaming, or is Boggert really tall?
Ooh, I feel tall every day.
We're standard height. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we're pretty much normal height and everyone else is monstrosity. We don't know why. It's just the way
No,
the world works.
you look taller than usual, but that's okay. I don't see anything. I think I'm.
I think we've
drunk.
seen.
I think I'm.
I'm getting taller. I'm getting taller. I'm gonna be the tallest one in the room someday. A packed cargo freighter named the Sea Slicer sailed through a fog-shrouded sea. It lurched high and low through the seas, crates groaning at its sides. On board, amongst the crew, stood a deckhand. As the ship passed through a shimmer, a mysterious event occurred. Every person, in fact every creature everywhere, disappeared, except for the deckhand. Calling out for anyone else, he realized he was totally alone. In fear for the crates, their contents, and the ship itself, the deckhand panicked. He did not understand the workings of the ship enough to get it under control, and without a crew to pull the sails and manage the ship's wheel, it was a task that could not be accomplished. Hello, hello, help, he pleaded. And his plea was heard by the only other thing that inhabited the world. The figure stood just before him on the other side of the cabin door. But he could immediately tell it was not human. It had no facial features. In fact, it had no real features at all. Ship careened out of control, and just as the figure reached through the doorway, the ship crashed on the shore of a desolate island. The deckhand was thrown into the water just beside the shore. While running from the ship and the figure, the deckhand began to realize he wasn't breathing normally. With every breath he took, it grew shallower and shallower. The farther he made it from the figure, the less he could breathe. The world grew darker and darker until he finally went unconscious. The deckhand awakened, and he found himself all the way back where the voyage began. But the crew of the ship and the cargo were never seen again. They say the shimmer figure waits just over the shimmer for its next crew. Will you be the only one it spares, or will you never be seen again?
Is it rendered more recent to hate shimmers?
They're scary.
Yes, we've heard instances where people have gone through the shimmer and seen an identical ship looking just like theirs and a crew looking just like them. So it looks like
Spooky.
the shimmer figure longs for others to join it.
Oh.
That's spooky.
Yes.
It really is.
And always tell people to put something in their pocket, a note, words of encouragement, or something to look out for. So if you do encounter your present or past or future, you can share a note with them.
That's a good idea.
Great idea.
I'm gonna start keeping a diary.
Yes, dear diary. The tour continues this way. Oops.
Right this way.
If anybody needs some popcorn or juice or anything, there's more in the barrels here. Feel free to help yourself.
The story of this printing press begins in the polar north. The freighter Frozen Sails was used to deliver supplies to a far-flung polar research base where the Frozen Institute was located. On the slippery top deck of Frozen Sails, a crew member called out eerily, "Who's there?" when they heard voices in the frozen fog crying. The calling out stopped the other crew in their tracks. Soon enough, they heard it too. Enchanting voices, calling out not in sorrow, but in song. By the time they could raise the alarm, no one wanted to any longer. Below decks, a sleeping crew member who would be on a late shift was awakened. They slid out of bed and across the sleeping quarters. Just as the crew member made it halfway out the topside, the sails, sitting untended, whirled and snapped violently in the wind. The heeling of the ship was so intense, crew members who were not already overboard were dumped overboard. The crew member was awestruck with horror. The crew member had plugged their ears with rolled cotton to stop the loud crew from waking them, and they were now oblivious to the sounds coming from the ocean. But they knew in an instant what was happening. They were under the attack of the siren's song. The masts, weakened by the whirling and snapping, groaned and gave way. They crashed down through the decks below and severely damaged the hull of the ship in the process. The crew member climbed into a dinghy, lowered it, and looked around as those nearby sickeningly dove underwater and swam down into the now still blue abyss. The survivor rode and rode for hours in the frozen waters until they reached land. They staggered onto the frosty shores. They called out and they collapsed. They had made it to the island of the Frozen Institute, and they would very soon be found. But the same can't be said for the Frozen Sails and her other crew. They drifted down into the dark and depths below. The survivor decided to print a book and tell the tale of that horrendous day. They used the boards from the very dinghy that they survived in to make a printing press, the one behind me, to print their book on. It is said the sea sirens placed a curse on that dinghy because they did not get the chance to clear the ocean completely that day. The now cursed printing press behind me can at times call out to those nearby, asking them to climb into its gnashing jaws. It is rumored it did eventually devour the crew member who created it, and we're left wondering, now is it satisfied, or will it strike again?
Huh. Who knows? I'm not sure I want to find out.
Oh, yeah, I don't think I want to find down, to be honest.
The next exhibit, for those that are a little squeamish about brains, teeth, or eyes, you may want to go into the next room. Or pass out on the floor like Morgan.
I think she's
Fall asleep,
really having
The very
trouble.
thought of it.
There you go. Get a closer look, Morgan. It'll be fine.
Heard stories about these clockworks. People are saying that they're just squeaking gears on the inside. That's all you're hearing. But it doesn't sound like squeaking gears to us. That does not sound like squeaking gears that I've ever heard. And we ask you now, if you want to take a look inside of one of these clockworks, we'll show you inside what's happening. I've removed the little panel from the top of the clockwork's head, and you're welcome to gaze down through the top of the clockwork to the inside, where you can see how it's operating. If you'll notice, there are 2 rows of perfectly formed human teeth
Oh.
on the inside, as well as something unusual further down inside the head, growing, which looks like a human brain.
It is.
damn it! Did I miss the one new one that I haven't seen? Fuck.
All right, well, I'll tell you.
Oh,
If
come
you
around
want
the
to,
side
you
more.
can gaze down into the top of the clockwork. We've removed the top of the head so that you can look down in there. And if you look close enough,
Oh no!
has it got you? No.
Oh no!
All right, you're free now. Yes.
Close one.
Would
If
need
you
to
look
add
down
that
in
to
there,
the disclaimer now.
you'll see two rows of perfectly formed human teeth on the inside. And also something unusual seems to be growing down near the neck region. We think that could be the remnants of some sort of brains.
Ew.
You can actually take.
It's a very unusual device.
There's a hat that's
normal.
haunted that removes the skull, and so you can actually see inside of it.
It's freaky.
Right, that brings us to our final item on the tour here today.
Please come and stand in front of the double doors.
Oh,
Oh no.
There she is.
In front of you stands Hurrah, the oddity of Itch Meadow Farm. Born during a hurricane and believed that she was born mid-air, the wrong way around. And she is now utterly convinced that she is standing the right way up, and she cannot be corrected. She doesn't use her hooves to get around, and instead, she slithers side to side on her back. She is able to see the berries that other animals miss under the bushes. So we're left wondering, is she a new adaptation of the species in order to fill a void? We must file her hooves down regularly because she does not wear them down naturally. She produces what her original owners at the farm referred to as the wrong way milk, in that it comes out the wrong way around. We here at the Oddities Museum call it swilk. Boggert will be glad to serve you up a portion of swilk if you would like to try it. It is said that by not hanging down into the udders and cooling, the milk stays hotter for a longer period of time, and it produces a much sweeter, more mature milk with a caramel flavor undertone that is prized over regular milk.
that's not bad.
Yum. Yeah, it's really good.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, wonderful.
You're welcome to step inside and take a closer look at her if you like.
You can take a closer look. She's very friendly. We ask that you don't stroke her udders. We've had issues on the tour.
She's a good girl.
What a cute cow.
Spooky.
I would assume the horns provide some resistance to the sliding around on the back.
Oh, yeah, that's right. If you join the tour partway through, we'll be glad to circle back to the beginning for you. But for everyone else, we've reached the conclusion of the tour.
Well, thank you very much, Boggert. It was great.
Oh, well, you're welcome. Thank you very much
Brilliant.
for coming.
Yeah, well, we wanted to bring Rowan because we
Yeah.
loved it and think he should have come seen it, and now he has.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming. We hope that you found some unusual warnings here today to keep you safe out on the seas so that you know what all's out there.
There's some blank letters in there. If you like to leave a review, you can just drop it into the drop box right next to the desk, or there's a drop box outside the door on your right as you exit the building.
Hey, Elias.
You're welcome.
You did join the tour partway through. If you want to join
Did a
me
great
here,
job.
we'll start again.
Thank you.
That was
Sounds good.
All right. Leave your preconceived notions of the normal world at this very threshold and enter the world of the mysterious, the unusual, and the odd at BoggOdd Oddities Museum. By entering the museum, you agree. Management not responsible for any and all incidents herein.
Wonderful.
At a blazing hot tropical Freeport, there stood a quiet specialty cheese shop at the end of an alley. You're probably questioning, is it appropriate to locate a cheese shop in the melting heat? The answer, no. Not because of the heat, however. It was the feral cats. The cats had taken to begging at the cheese shop and the patrons were leaving. They would kindly drop a crumb or two, leading the cats to wait for the next patron. Eventually, the roof support beams groaned and popped under the weight of waiting cats. The shop owner attempted to shoo them away at first, but then realized the cats wouldn't touch the crumbs of the most pungent cheeses. The patron remarked, "It is so hot today, the stone walls are almost sizzling." As the patron rounded the corner, the shop owner sprang into action and, gathering the most pungent of cheeses, pressed them against the blazing hot stone walls, where they melted, sticking them on. It did work. To the cats, the stench of the cheese was so intense that they fled to the far side of the island. The shop owner rested well that evening until suddenly the roof supports began to creak and groan. Running out into the dark to chase the cats off the bowing roof, the shop owner caught a glimpse of them through the moonlight. The cats first turned their eyes and then their beaks toward the shop owner. It is then the shop owner realized the roof was covered not in cats, but in starving, hungry vultures.
You're welcome to sniff the wall if you like to get the smell of the pungent cheese.
We better not go too close.
Tour continues right this way. The Great Northern Factory disaster took place on a particularly cold, dark, rainy evening. The main source of heat in the frozen north was a giant fireplace located just behind me here. The factory backed up to a large rock mountain, and the entrance of a great coal mine was built down off the factory into the depths of the mountain. The top of the mountain was a known habitat for an assortment of animals. The employees of the factory found a particularly large snake roasting on the coals late one afternoon and proceeded to prepare it for the dinner pot. It was not unusual for someone to bring whatever they had to share, although they could not determine who brought the snake. They made a feast of the snake anyhow and went back to work, and as the evening grew colder and darker, they placed more and more coal onto the fire. What no one realized is that the snake deliciously roasting on the fires had chased a rather plump sheep off the mountaintop. The snake and the sheep both fell over the edge and landed on top of the smokestack. The snake fell through, down onto the coals below, as the sheep was wedged high above the factory. The toxic smoke had already weakened most of the workers to the point they could no longer get out when the panic began. All but 3 workers were killed in the tragedy. The death toll was said to be near 458 lives, and it would remain the largest number of people killed by a single sheep for at least 2 more decades.
Wow.
What was the
Sheep.
first?
What was the next?
Oh, yeah.
Indeed.
We don't have all the information. We're sorry. We don't know what eclipsed this as an even more horrific tale of sheep. But something did. We're still searching for that story. We're hoping to be able to piece the rest of it together.
Wonderful.
Before you here is a certified giraffe examination chair. It's been placed here as a public service by the Giraffe Handlers Association. When a giraffe needs to be examined for multiple different reasons, it is much easier to inspect the giraffe from closer to their height. The doctor will climb up the chair and the giraffe will be brought closer for inspection. What type, you may ask? One purpose is to see whether they have the giraffe-like teeth, or the less common human-like teeth, of course. But a far more common reason is to see if the ears have been laid with spider eggs again, as giraffe ears are known to be the perfect habitat for spider eggs. Laying their eggs deep within the giraffe's warm ear hairs, they lie forgotten until the time comes for hatching. If you have giraffes, tame or wild, near your home, be sure that they are not shaking their heads frequently. This is the first sign spider egg laying has occurred. If your giraffes have ears infested with spider eggs, the time will come they will hatch, and the giraffe's head shaking will deposit the new, fresh spider hatchlings around and throughout your home.
Who knew? Giraffes.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, that's right.
Do we have giraffes?
Do you have giraffes?
Okay, it looks like they're having server issues, so we'll stop there for a second and see what's going on. In the meantime, I'll be right back.